Okay, good evening, everyone. I guess it is evening, almost good night. This is your KASB update for Thursday, February 25th. We've just finished a 2.5 hour meeting of the K-12 Education Budget Committee. Kind of got a lot to go over. I'm going to go pretty quickly, and then we'll unpack this in a lot more detail tomorrow at our special 3:30 p.m. Advocacy update. Bottom line is this: the K-12 Budget Committee took not only the budget, but a number of other bills and policies and packaged them all in one new bill. I'm
Mark,
sorry.
one moment. I wasn't able to get the recording turned on. Just start about 5 seconds before you just started. Sorry. Begin again, please.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the KASB
Sorry,
legislative
folks.
Actually, give me just a moment. We're just making this up kind of as we go. I'm going to restart. We're timing this, so that's why it took us just a moment. This is Thursday, February 25th, your KSB legislative update, and we are just coming off of a long meeting of the K-12 Education Budget Committee, which shouldn't be surprised. New things happen every day, and this has happened before. But basically, the committee took the K-12 funding recommendations, which would normally be part of the larger state budget, they placed it in a different bill along with a number of other items. So we now have both the budget recommendations and policy recommendations in several different areas in one bill. It's the same number, House Bill 2119, that started as the Education Savings Account bill. Now it is sort of the education omnibus, as the budget and other things. So I'm going to quickly talk about what's in it. It still has the education savings account provisions, private school funding, which we oppose, but they removed the part that a child could become eligible based on remote and hybrid learning. Okay, that's one change. Number two, they brought in the version of the private school education tax credit expansion in 2068 that the committee had previously passed. That's in this too now. Then they added in House Bill 2067, which is the bill directing schools to do a needs assessment, which you're already supposed to be doing, and use the results to allocate money to improve student achievement and achieve education goals. Not really a mandatory bill, that's in there too. Then they pulled in all of the governor's recommendations, which, and this is critical, fully fund the implementation of Gannon. Those funding for this year and next year have been brought into this same bill. The only thing not in it was an extension of the high density at risk to 2023. So it keeps it going into next year, but it doesn't add another year, which was the governor's original proposal. Then it directs the State Department of Education, if legally possible, to use federal COVID aid to provide $5 million in safety grants, like we've had the past several years from state funding, but the governor has removed as kind of part of a budget allotment process, expanding school mental health, which the legislature has funded and was also cut back by the governor allotment and not added, funding for communities and schools, which has been federally funded, and it's kind of complicated. This is a fairly small program, but it's pretty well reviewed, and expanding another phase of a new language assessment program under the School for the Deaf. Again, this is kind of a phase-in program that was running out of phase-in money. So the direction is to use federal COVID aid, if possible, to fund these programs, not adding state general fund money. And of course, this means it's just kind of the one-time money under COVID, but it's also adding money that currently isn't there. Then really weird, if you ever on your income taxes do that little check off saying, I want to send some money to my school district. Well, apparently some of you don't actually designate a school district and that money can't be spent. So there'll be a proviso in this saying the State Department can allocate those money across all districts. And a provision was put in to add extension for the next 2 years of the statewide mill levy, which has to be done every 2 years. These are things this is something the State Department of Education had asked for. Okay. Then a provision was adopted to have a recommendation that local school boards provide all classroom teachers, and that's what's in the bill, a $500 bonus with the COVID money, assuming you can tie it to the idea that teachers have worked very hard because of COVID. So again, this would be the estimated statewide cost would be about $18 million. The chair is noting school districts are going to be getting 300 million more dollars and maybe another 500 million more dollars, but it's not required. That'll be a decision local boards would have to make one-time money. Then probably the biggest pieces came at the end, and you guys may have to help me. Essentially, the policy is this: starting next year, in order to meet the minimum school term, districts cannot operate more than 240 hours or 40 days in remote and count it toward the school term. So basically it's saying that to get your hours, that's the most you could be in a remote environment, and that would have to be approved by the State Board of Education. And if you operate beyond that, if a student is in that environment more than that hour threshold, then the student has to be counted as a virtual student and is funded at a flat $5,000 instead of receiving the weightings. Now we've got the actual wording. We're going to have to see how this all works together, but essentially the intent is to basically say the legislature does not want students to be required to be in a virtual or remote environment above this threshold, and that would be law. And if a child is in that environment longer than that, then they would not get the extra weightings. So all that was put together in this bill. It is now one bill that has both these private school provisions and funding and addressing hybrid and remote learning kind of options are all now tied into one bill that will be introduced as a brand new substitute bill, but with the same number, that I believe, and will simply go to the House floor, and I don't believe goes through the Appropriations Committee, but I'm not really clear on that unless you guys heard that. So that's where we are now. A lot of policy changes. What did not happen was some kind of serious changing around current year funding and using federal dollars and things like that. Fairly targeted, not entirely clear if this can all work, but that's the plan. I'm going to note a couple quick other things, then ask my colleagues to join me. Also today, the Senate Education Committee had a hearing on Senate Bill 235, which basically says districts have to be back in full-time in-person learning for kids who want it. You don't have to make kids do it, but you have to offer it by March 26th of this year and then beyond. Committee did not work any other bills, so there's about 6 more bills we think the committee will work. They're going to meet early tomorrow. So if you've been listening to us talk about bills in Senate Education, tomorrow's kind of the last chance for them to come out. Finally, we've been following the 2 judiciary committees are looking at new emergency management bills, one which would basically say nobody can tell school boards what to do, but if a parent, student, employee doesn't like what you do, they can appeal to the board and then appeal to district court. The House version, the only thing it says about schools is that the governor could not close private schools. That's where I think we are. Guys, I've left you 2 minutes. Any other quick comments you want to make before we run out of time, or see people tomorrow?
Well, I'm, certainly not an attorney, not a paid attorney spokesperson either. It's not clear to me how all of this will comport with Gannon, and I think that's something that will have to be discussed going forward. So that's all I will note on that.
Gannon will be one issue. Oh, I'm sorry, Scott. You should talk. I've been doing all of it, but now you're muted.
Yep. Basically, I was just going to update on the emergency management bills. The plan is the House will kick its bill out on Monday. The Senate committee is probably wrapping up its work on it right now and maybe running it on the floor on Tuesday.
Okay, that's good. We should also point out there was a hearing today on a bill that would basically say you can't have an adverse employment decision based on someone's choice to get vaccinated or not. Committee has not worked that. That's another thing that would still be out there. So before we run out of time, we just want to remind you our normal noon Zoom tomorrow will be pushed off till 3:30 to let us cover some afternoon committee meetings. We'll give you a better wrap up then in our full update tomorrow. No committee meetings next week, but we'll obviously be doing a lot of looking at the implications of these bills. So guys, thank you very much. Thanks for viewing, and we'll see you as you view tomorrow or over the weekend. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
On all that stuff in 21.